you also had the pleasure of sitting down and picking the brains of much of this tight end class a day ago as well. Everybody came out here and said they want to be the next George Kittle. Yeah. But I'm sorry, George Kittles do not grow on trees. Just a rare mixture of that ability to block, put the hand in the ground, and a premier pass catcher as well. When you look at this class, is it more hand in the ground or more glorified slot receiver types?
I think, just the way the tight end position is trending, it's more of the, slot receiver types. But this is a class that has guys that can do both. Trey McBride strikes me as somebody that can be a blocker. Jeremy Ruckert, for sure, strikes me as that type of guy. He talked about that. He's like, I was more of a blocker than I was a pass catcher, and I had to learn to be a pass catcher. But he also said that's part of the reason why he went to Ohio State was because he wanted to develop more as a blocker. So the reason you're hearing guys say George Kittle is because he's one of the rare guys that can be elite at both. A good blocker, a good pass catcher. I mean, that's what we're going to have to see what these guys could do at the next level.
I look at this class and feel the exact opposite. I think this is a much greater class of hand in the dirt type guys. Okay. Now, what you're starting to see, though, is Ruckert, for example, he didn't have quite as much production. Well, go back and throw that wide receiver group for Ohio State up. Maybe there's a reason why.
He mentioned that.
And that's part of it. His best football will be played in the NFL. Won't be there. Cade Otton is the same way coming out of Washington. He could put his hand in the ground and he'll be able to go and make some blocks. I love the kid out of Iowa State, Charlie Kohler. Got to see him a decent amount this year. Obviously, when you're watching Breece Hall, you can't help but watch how he gets to the edge. A lot of times because the tight ends there. Chase Allen's another kid who's coming out in this draft class. But they would move them around. They'd split them out. When they needed to make a play, it was Charlie Kohler who they were going to. So this is, again, not a class that has a top-end guy that you're looking at saying that's by far and away the best. To me, it's kind of eye of the beholder, but I think all of them are very capable blockers, which is something that you don't always hear in the past. Usually that's the question about some of them. All these guys can block.
Can't miss is a tough tag to throw around here at the Scouting Combine and really in any situation when we're talking about professional athletes, NFL football, and the future of the game. But, Jamie, when we're talking about high-floor guys you expect to have an impact over the next decade in this league, we know you always got numbers next to the name. Give us a few.
Yeah, I tried to stay in my lane, so I kind of stick with the fantasy guys that are going to, I think, have the chance to be successful for years to come. It's the four receivers for me at the top, not including Jameson Williams because, again, I want to see him come back at the level that we know he's capable of. But it's the two guys from Ohio State, Traylon Burks and Garrett and Drake London. So I think you look at these four guys. I think if they end up in the right spots, based on what they showed you in college, based on what the measurables look like so far, and the opportunity for them to be difference makers, and then I got to put a running back in there because that's the lifeline of fantasy leagues. But Breece Hall, I think you just look at what he is able to do, should be able to do, a three-down back with the physicality, with the breakaway speed. Isaiah Spiller's in that category. I think Ken Walker, if he can work as a pass catcher, could be in that category. But Breece Hall's my favorite guy, so got to put a running back on that list.
Josina, your closing thought here.
No, it's just interesting that because obviously you come from the fantasy perspective and you're talking about a can't miss and you're talking about guys sometimes that can be very hard to project how they'll translate, and even having the longevity at the wide receiver and the running back position. When you go can't miss, I'm just going to say Evan Neal, as far as, being a tackle and, that's why they get paid. They got to protect the most important guy on the field, and I just think he's a surefire thing.
Same thing. I mean, look, as far as prospects go, you can't teach that sort of size and athleticism, that combination. That's going to last throughout his career. I'm going to go on the defensive side, though. We haven't really touched on that much. Derek
They
Stingley's,
play defense?
Yeah, they do. Don't you have to have a defensive team in fantasy? I think someone told me that.
Depends on the league.
Derek Stingley and Sauce Gardner are two cornerbacks that really stand out to me. Gardner had a phenomenal year this year. I think his game translates very easily. Stingley, when he came in as a freshman at LSU, you were like, okay, that's already one of the best players in the country. So I think both those guys are going to have a very, very long career ahead of them, and guys that I want to have to throw against. I can tell you that much.
We appreciate the thoughts, the insights, as always. Jamie, Josina, Brady, fantastic stuff. Coverage will continue here from Indy as the week rolls on. We're going to keep you guys up to the minute with all the latest breaking news and numbers from Indianapolis. Stick with us on HQ for all the latest breaking news, everything you need to know right here on CBS Sports HQ.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.